Hi, apologies again for this. Apparently, the controls have changed a little bit on the page videos since the last time I've done this, so I don't have any ability to edit this after it starts, which is super frustrating, or share it around easily. So we're back, we're live. I'm just going to share this so people know where we are, and then I'm going to continue. I'm not going to share a screen again because yeah, that didn't work very well. So again, my apologies, and I will get things going. Okay, thank you. Right. Hello, everybody. Gary is going to be in the chat yet again. And we'll just make sure everybody knows where that's happening. Okay. So apologies for that, and taking a little bit to start up. What I was sharing before, just so you know, so you have an idea of what it was, is something that we'll be talking about today, which is a chart of basically it's consent negotiations. And we had some printouts with that for the last LARP we had, the last Nellies by Night. And we're going to use that again this time, so we'll have a similar printout as well for you guys to use. That will be pretty helpful. It's not an hard and fast rule that you need to go by, but a lot of people have found it helpful. So let's get started. As I said before, there is a contest right now. If people are still interested or haven't bought tickets and are thinking about it, or if you have some friends who are interested in going to Nelly's, there is a contest for 2 tickets available right now. You can go online and enter for that. It's on our site as well as on all of our pages and on all of our social media as well. It's the link in the bio for our Instagram page, et cetera, et cetera. So that's one thing that's going on at the moment. Also, we have 2 more workshops for this, so this is not the only opportunity for you to do this workshop. We have one coming up on Sunday, that is the 15th at 4 o'clock. And we have another one coming up before the game that comes. It's a workshop for the safety aspects, as well as a workshop for you to be able to do some character building exercises with other people that you work with in your group, like in your groups for your characters, as well as just sort of ways to build character ties or character relationships with people that you might not normally think that you would talk to in the city necessarily, but that you might have run into over the past years as a vampire or as a ghoul or similar. Anyway, let's get started. This doesn't take very, very long, this part of things, so we'll just get right into it. And I'm glad people are here today. It will be still available on the site afterwards, and we usually upload at least one of these on YouTube as well available. There will also be a recap available of this. We are just going to have to update our post from last year more or less. So you'll have many ways to go over this information again. So first question is, why do these online workshops? First off, we know that people have limited time. There are difficulties people have in scheduling things, especially trying to do a lot of workshops and a lot of different sort of activities within a weekend of LARP. Not everybody has that kind of time off. Ideally, we would have like an evening of workshops before a full day of LARP. That's not always possible, and we've booked in some more time because that was on the day of the LARP for workshops, because that was something players wanted from the last event. But it's not even always possible for everyone to be available for all of that. Also, some people with chronic illnesses have a lot of difficulties having the energy to go through a full day of that. Even if there's like a couple hours break in between, it's not often enough to kind of like be able to manage their energy for the day and then be able to be up and willing to, you know, available to do things for the rest of the evening. 1 second. That is not the video.
Oh, this is the video.
No, that was the first video that screwed up.
That's where it took me.
The live video is the one. There you go. Sorry, I just had to make Gary was sharing the right video with the event, the workshop event. Anyway, so we also have this so people who don't have a lot of extra energy during the day can kind of review things at their own leisure or have an opportunity to ask questions. So our hope is to give people lots of ways to engage with and understand the techniques and mechanics we have. Please ask questions. Gary is now in the chat, and will pass them on to me if I miss them. We also have some more information. I will cut and paste the link. On the blog, you can find all of the posts from last year about security, safety, and consent workshops, but I will put this one in here as well. There you go. So the first thing is security. I'm going to have a drink of water first. We also have some very neurotic cats with us this evening that seem to be insistent about something. I don't know what. They've been fed and gotten everything they want. So if a cat comes through or I seem very surprised by something, it's probably a cat. Anyway, security. The house doorman at Nelly's, as some of you know from your character backgrounds or from playing before, the house doorman will provide in-character and out-of-character security. Jesse, who is playing Locke, the doorman for Nelly's, is an experienced actor, a longtime LARPer, and he's worked as club and event security in bars and lounges, event locations around the city for 20 plus years. This is an in-character and out-of-character role, so addressing the doorman privately will not seem unusual for any character. If you prefer to have someone to mediate between you and the security, you can speak to or text to me or Gary, and we'll provide an emergency text number for this before the event. I'll be in the downstairs kitchen this time doing organizing, while Gary will be in game as an NPC. So that's who you can speak to if you need to. I'm going to be probably stationed down there. And we'll probably have our plan is to have the upstairs kitchen be like kind of a quiet lounge area for people to chill out, because there is a lot of noise, and we'd like to have a space for that. Padfoot, see, I have a cat at my face and trying to eat my cords already. Padfoot, come here. No. No. The other thing as well that you should know is there is actually security that is hired by the venue, by the Darling Mansion. They are totally cool and are fine with just kind of chilling out and seeing what's happening with the event. They will not involve themselves or have any problems. Jesse coordinated with them last time, and it all worked out fine. So that's totally cool. But while we trust everybody to trust one another and behave inappropriately, and though we're serving alcohol, we don't expect anybody to get wasted and act like an idiot. If there's issues, Jesse will handle them, and we trust him to do so. So next, we will move on to safety. Hello, Scott. I'm glad you made it. Sorry, I couldn't find your message earlier. So safety. This will not take very long as well. Well, none of it does. Anyway, what we have for safety, we're doing the same thing as before. I don't like to change things when there's already been one event because it confuses people. So the first thing that we have is to call cut to stop action. Cut is just a simple sort of thing. It's like in a movie or something like that. When you hear cut, you stop doing things. So that's the sort of way we use it in LARPs. Here is a link about cut as a personal safe word. It's just a way to say everyone stop something, and it can be used for literally anything. If there is a medical emergency, if you feel uncomfortable, whatever the reason. A lot of people don't feel comfortable using cut, and they should feel comfortable using it if it is necessary. If you need to stop game for anything, that is there for you to use. If you don't want to stop game, but you need a reason to kind of opt out of things, you need to take a breather, or you don't want to be involved in a scene, the other thing you can do is look down. We have some photos available with this in our recap when we put that up. So, oh my God, Padfoot. She is just going to kill me. Look down, you can use for opting in and out of a scene. So if you come into a scene and you find it's not something that you wanted to be involved in, you can look down and say, I am not involved in this scene, and back away. Another option for look down is if you come into a scene and you see that there's a meeting that you completely should have been there. All of your clan is having a meeting, and you're like, oh my God, I totally would have known about this. You can look down into the meeting and be like, I was totally here the whole time. This can be done also for reasons as simple as you need to use the bathroom, and vampires don't do that. And you just need to get out of the scene for 2 seconds to do that. So here is another thing about look down and other calibration mechanics. It's pretty cool. The other one is OK check-in. It's not super in-game, but it's a very easy way to check in with someone. You can see if they're all right. And the simple way of doing that is just going, sometimes people will cover it with their hand to make sure that they know that this is an out-of-game inquiry. So if someone does this, your responses are, you have like basically 2 responses you can give. Well, 3. The 3 responses are, yes, I'm good. So if I'm crying, oh my God, like I often do, weeping, 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 looks like my heart is breaking. People go, are you okay? Nicole's like, yeah, everything's fine. If you are not okay, if you're like, or no, you can say no. If you get either of those responses from someone else, or you give either of those responses, that basically means that you're not okay. And basically the person with you, or you being that person, should say, how can I help you? If you get the thumbs up, continue on. Otherwise, just ask how you can help. Do you need water? Do you need a quiet place? Do you need something similar? That's all you need to do is just ask what they need at that point in time, how you can help them. They may be fine. They may just need a minute. They may need to opt out of the game. Who knows? So here is a little bit about OK check-in. It's super, super simple and a really easy way to check in on somebody. Pronoun correction is very simple. If you use someone's pronouns incorrectly, all they have to do is correct you. So say someone used he for me, I would just say she, and you would say she, thank you, and accept the correction. We will accept that this happens sometimes, that people make mistakes. But a continued misgendering should be brought to the attention of the organizers. We're not okay with that, and we will take action on something that continues to happen. But it's just a simple correction. Sometimes we use the pronoun P sign language. I don't use it because I never can remember it, and there is no one here to tell me what it is right now. So that's embarrassing, but just wanted to let you guys know that. Anyway, yes, simply accept the correction if you're being corrected. If there is an incorrect pronoun used, you can correct for someone else, or you can correct for yourself. The second floor. The second floor is, this time people are staying on the second floor. So the first thing is, remember that people have rented the rooms for the night after the LARP. So please respect that space. They're going to be staying there. So yeah, don't look at their stuff or anything like that, and don't do too much in those rooms. However, we are still restricting feeding and intimacy role play, even if it's just like the discussion between the participants, to the second floor. So people can engage with that role play if they want to, but they do not necessarily have to. In terms of doors, we had some issues with closed doors and open doors. Again, remember, people have rented the rooms for the night after the LARP, but we will have some indicator for a do not disturb door we will have some indicator to say do not disturb for closed doors. But the exception, we'll have an indicator for do not disturb. The only reason you should have a closed door is in the case of an intimate scene. The exception to the do not disturb is Jesse. It's his job to check in on people and maintains everyone's safety. So if he needs to do that, he's going to do so. However, if you don't want to be bothered during your scene, it's possible for you to go ahead and check in with Jesse, let him know you don't want to be bothered, and let him know how long you're going to be. This can even be done in-game. It's perfectly within the setting and within in-character boundaries to say to him, this is what's happening and this is how long we're going to be there. Please don't bother us. And yeah, that's something that can be kept in game. It's just something that we want to make sure that he's doing his job, and he is able to do his job while we are still maintaining the use of the upstairs rooms and not cutting off role play at the same time. So we're going to go on to consent mechanics after that. If anybody has any questions, please let me know, but I'm just going to take a drink of water for a second and see if anyone does, but I will share the chart actually right now. So that link that I've shared right here is a chart that you can kind of follow along with. The person who made it, he was a player at the terminal benefit in British Columbia and Vancouver, excuse me, at Kane 2018, I guess. And it's unfortunate that I didn't really get his name because this was actually really useful. He said he learned things better visually, so drew this out, and I took a picture of it and recreated it for our game. And so I found that some people used it a little bit, like found it a little bit easier to use than the actual examples or something. But I also have a example of it that was filmed by myself and a couple of people from who have played a couple of different Nordic LARPs, and we did this for New World Magiscola. It's an example of how consent mechanics would work in a wizard school game. So you can watch that later if you want to have another example of it. So basically, the consent negotiations we use have been developed and used in events like I said, New World Magiscola, Convention of Thorns, and End of the Line, the last two of which are Vampire the Masquerade events. They're also used in, I believe some form of them are used in Jackalope's The Night in Question, and I think they're working them into a few other games as well. Excuse me. The most important thing in consent-based play, or the basic tenet, is no one can do anything to your character without your consent. That is the most important thing. So anything that you don't want to happen to your character does not happen to your character unless you want it to. Discipline use, feeding, intimacy, and other interactions, these all require negotiation. Guidelines will be provided as to what can be accomplished at which power level of each vampiric discipline selected during character creation. You can remember that these are just guidelines, and in the end, it's the targeted player who decides what will happen in the given scene, though the player using the discipline can make suggestions. So again, in this LARP, the recipient decides how disciplines affect them. No one can force you to do or say anything without your consent. Some scenes that, like those that require violence or feeding, require additional negotiation just to make sure everyone is on the same page. So in this workshop, I'm going to show you how to negotiate consent in these situations. So again, there are some main principles to this. The first is players are more important than games. That's the biggest thing. Your emotions and feelings and safety as a player is way more important than anything that we're trying to do with a game. I care, and Gary cares way more about you as a player and that you've had a good time than anything that we're trying to do here. The second one is it's not about you, which is sometimes hard to internalize, especially for me, because I like to overanalyze things and blame myself for everything. So I can understand why it's difficult to say it's not about you. But it is not about you if someone doesn't want to play a certain scene or theme or anything else, or if they don't want to play something specifically with you. They don't have to explain why, and their boundaries don't have to have anything to do with you, so don't take them personally. You should take them seriously, but not personally. It's not anything to do with you. It's their business and their deal, and it's not something to take offense to. And the last principle is every encounter requires negotiation, which means that even if you negotiated earlier in the LARP or earlier in the day that this thing is okay, it's important to check in and make sure that the things that you've negotiated are still okay later. People's boundaries can change over the LARP, and it's fine because it's not about you. So every encounter should be negotiated. Now, this is a kind of scripted process, an ideal situation by which this should go. Even the people who created this process say that they don't always do it, and they don't do it properly half of the time. The most important thing for us is that you make sure that you're on the same page before you continue role playing, and that you give each other space to kind of both get what you want out of the situation, and that you don't do anything that you don't want to do. Those are the main things. So, to move on to explaining it and showing why I have Feynman and Stitch with me. When you negotiate consent for any particular thing, you step out of game briefly using the cue off-game consent negotiation. Then you follow it up with the type of action you wish to negotiate with. How would you feel about X? Could be, how do you feel about romance? Or it could be off-game consent negotiation, violence, as I got once, or many times during Convention of Thorns. I always call it Convention of Thrones, because Game of Thrones, Convention of Thorns. Anyway, point being, you ask someone, how would you feel, off-game consent negotiations, how would you feel about bullying, about being yelled at? People have different tolerances for different things. Being yelled at is something that I have to remember because I enjoy yelling at people. In any case, you ask them this, off-game consent negotiation. How would you feel about violence? You also physically take a small step back to not loom over the player. Some of us, that's not an issue. Other people, it can be. So it's good to remember to do so. If you're being asked the question, take a few seconds to think about it. It allows you to switch out of character and evaluate your feelings as a player. Our boundaries as players can be different than our characters' boundaries, so it's always good to think about it. Your character could be like, yeah, let's have a fight, and you could be like, I actually am not up for that emotionally tonight. So take a second to consider this. Your responses to the question of how you would feel about violence, for example, are no thank you or yes please. If a player responds no thank you, your response is thank you. You thank them for setting a boundary, because boundaries make everyone feel more secure in pushing the limits of play. That's the end of the negotiation in that sense. It makes a lot of, actually this, Gary's probably typing the same thing, but Scott, just to say really quickly, when we first started playing at College of Wizardry, we came back and we hadn't LARPed in about 10 years, I think, in about a decade. And we came back from College of Wizardry and we were like, oh my God, you can LARP like this? Like, I did not know this could happen. So that was kind of like our big mind-blowing moment, and when we started to do more things like this. So that's totally the same. I feel you, brother. Anyway, so so if someone says no thank you, so this is where Stitch and Figment come in. Stitch is like, hey Figment, off-game consent negotiation, violence, how do you feel about violence? Figment thinks for a minute. Figment's like, no, thank you. And Stitch says, thank you. And then they go on role-playing, because the other thing about this is that this does not end the scene. It can end the negotiation, but it doesn't have to end the scene. So if Figment is not up for violence, it means Stitch can't punch him or bite him or claw him. But it does mean that they can have a threatening conversation. It does mean that Stitch can threaten Figment. Stitch can, bring his friends over to maybe do other threatening things. There's lots of ways that Stitch can not be violent, but can be, threatening and scary towards Figment. So if a player responds, yes, please. So say Figment is down for some rough and tumble fighting. So we move back. Stitch is like, how would you feel about violence? Figment's like, yes, please. Now, Stitch says, how would you like to play this? The important thing is to not offer suggestions. This does not always work, so it's fine if you do. But try not to offer suggestions. Allow your Figment to respond with their interests in how to play the scene. And try and remember the response should be from the player, not the character. So take some time to think about what you would like as a player out of the scene. So you would say, Stitch would say, how would you like to play this? Now, when Figment responds, Figment needs to say something specific. Figment can't say, I don't know, or what do you want? Or I'm up for everything, anything, or, whatever's cool. That is not a specific answer, because that means totally different things to Figment and Stitch and me and Gary. So it's impossible to set a boundary. So if a player can't be specific, the negotiations are over and play on that theme does not continue until specific boundaries can be set and agreed on. However, if the person names a specific thing, like Figment says, what are you up for? The Stitch says, what are you up for? And Figment is, I am down with biting and clawing. Then that's okay. But maybe Stitch is like, I don't feel comfortable with clawing and biting, and I'm okay with like some wrestling. I'd really prefer that because I don't really want to be wounded. That's okay. You can negotiate between the two of you what sort of violence and what level of violence is okay with you. Each person gets to negotiate, and you should not escalate the negotiation to a higher degree of comfort than the person initially states. So if Figment said, I'm good with biting and clawing, and Figment was like, okay, well, I want to bite and claw and then push you off a cliff, that's not cool. No. It always has to be lower and things like that. So that is how the basics of how you negotiate. But like I said, as long as you're asking each other out of game, are you okay with this? What would you be okay with? A number of, an example from last game is they were going to erase someone's memory, and they weren't totally cool with the way that their memories would be replaced. So they negotiated a better concept of what they would remember or what their concept of the evening would be, so it was more entertaining for everyone involved. There are a number of different kind of ways to do it. I think it works well, especially with discipline use. Discipline use is often one of the most difficult things in a vampire game. I think people have a really hard time with disciplines, because especially with disciplines where you're being told to do something, like someone's like, you are now my, zombie slave and you do whatever I want. Like, that's not a lot of fun. But if you talk to someone about it and you're like, I want to dominate you to do this, and you're like, I think that would not be interesting to me, but it would be interesting if you dominated me to do this, and then I took it this way, so I'm like doing something actually that's not helpful to you and screwing up your life. And then you can riff off each other. And that's really the cool thing, because then you're building a story together. And that's what I like the most about the consent-based mechanics. So just to wrap that up, not everyone will want to participate in every kind of scene, and that's fine. It's not about you. Remember that. Setting boundaries makes everyone feel safer about playing more intense content. Yes, please, to a scene, unless you really mean it. None of us wants anyone else to feel uncomfortable for the sake of a scene, because people are more important than games. You are all more important than this game. We do not care about anything in this game if you are not having fun in it. And that is basically everything we have to say, I think. Gary, did I miss anything? No? So that's all of us. yeah, that's everything from us. So if you guys have questions, like, please feel free to state them. We have like about 15 minutes before we are going to watch Amazing Race Canada and cheer on James and what's his husband's name?
I forget.
We always forget his husband's name.
James is easy to
James. Team whatever. The other name we don't remember.
Yes.
Team Indigenous Wellness. Yay! Thank you, Daniel. Yeah, and again, we're having 2 more of these. We'll probably do, depending, more of like a review on the Saturday before our game than anything. This Saturday, we're hoping to do more like group work, questions with each other. Maybe you guys can do some scenes, some past scenes and things like that. There was a cool exercise we did at Icarus, actually, that maybe we should steal. That was sort of a time travel thing that allowed you to play a scene that went through a few weeks very quickly with one of your groups, or a few months. So that was okay. That worked well.
Frank, thanks.
Oh, thank you, Frank, for visiting and for watching. Much appreciated. I'm glad people are watching. Then I don't feel like I'm doing it for myself, which is always nice. I'm showing everyone our wall of Post-it notes. This week we've been working on a bunch of Nelly stuff. We've been working on pitching the quota, which is a LARP that was done in the UK. They're beautifully, Gary organizes the Post-its, McKenna, so he's beautifully organized them. I buy the colors and he does the organizing it. But yeah, we've been working on, just as a little update since I have some time to kill, we've been working on pitching the quota, which was run in the UK. We'd be adapting it for North America, US, and Canada. It's a LARP that was run actually in France too. It's about refugees. In the UK, it was refugees and economic migrants trying to cross the border into independent Wales, post-Brexit UK. In France, they were trying to cross the border into an independent Breton. Here we would be working on people trying to cross the border from a post-Trump, post-climate change America into Canada. There's a language aspect of it, so we'd be looking at using all of the guards and etc. would be French Canadian, and all of the people who are applying to come into Canada would speak English. What else? Oh, we are working on a festival that looks like it's coming up in March of 2020. That's sort of embodied arts. So like LARP, immersive theater, anything immersive, maybe escape rooms. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see who comes to present and who wants to like give talks and stuff like that. Just a lot of stuff. Too much stuff. Too much work. Too much work. Yeah, we'll definitely, yeah, Daniel, we'll be riffing off some Gilead, like people with Handmaid's Tale, people, and all of the stuff happening with Trump. There's already been a lot of talk about people in the US wanting to come up here or considering, like certain groups considering whether they could get refugee status, but we have the safe third country agreement. And so you can't, if you've claimed refugee status in one of our countries, you can't claim refugee status in the other. So if you've claimed refugee status in the US or Canada, you can't go to the other one to claim your refugee status. And I don't know how that affects claiming status between the two countries. So that's something we have to look at as well, a lot of. But we definitely need, we already said we definitely need Americans to help us write that too, because like we're not Americans, so we can't write a ton of American characters necessarily either, right? So anyway, if people have questions later, they can always message us at Fair Escape Studios. It's more likely for us to see them there because sometimes it kind of gets trapped in the message requests box if it comes to us personally, or email us. That always works too. Gary's pretty good with email right now. I'm a little bit swamped, so I've been kind of worse about it. So my apologies for that. But yeah, again, thank you so much for everybody for watching. I love having people watch, and thank you for putting up with our cats crying and attacking the computer in the background, and for the minor technical difficulties. And we will see you again on Sunday if you decide to show up. We'll have some recaps. We're going to have some more posts. And we will see you in less than 2 weeks for Nelly's. Enter the contest if you haven't. The link is on the site, and it's on our web, on our page right here. And I believe it is. Oh, are you going to share it? Gary's going to share it in the chat right now because he's that cool. So there you go. If you sign up to our mailing list, you get entered, and if you share some of our stuff, you get more entries because we used a super cool service for a little bit. Anyway, thank you. Have a good night, and we'll see you soon. Bye.